Now there are a few little tips that can make life easier when it comes to trying to match for style, and this is the kind of effect we're looking for. We took from an earlier video a portion of a script character, and I've broken that apart, and we're using just this leg from the R. We're trying to make the two merge together, feeling as seamless as possible. So the first thing you want to look at is weight and contrast. So if you look at the weight of these portions of the font, the kind of upright portions, very bold, very thick, where the horizontal portions are contrasted, they're very thin. So you kind of want to reflect that in this portion we're adding on, and there's a few ways you could go about doing that. I'll jump across to another artboard here. That was another nice little touch I came to, by the way. Decided to put V inside the O. I think that's quite a nice touch. So you could either match the narrowest, lightest portion of the serif font, and I've just drawn this by hand using the brush tool, just so I can kind of illustrate to you the difference that stroke weight makes. So if it's very thin, we're kind of matching the narrowest element, and that's okay to me. That doesn't really flow nicely. Looks a little bit extreme as it kind of jumps out of here from the R, but in some cases, let's say this were coming from a narrow portion, maybe you'd want to continue that weight all the way along. If we increase the size, this is going to look really ugly at first, and we did something like maybe taper it, so that it starts off thick and then it tapers down. I mean, that's okay potentially, so maybe that would be one way that you decide to balance it in this particular case. There's another example I've created here. Now this is a little closer to what you'd want to do, so I would suggest if you're looking to really try to match the original style, and it's not something you can do just grabbing and tweaking the script typeface that you've put aside, you'd want to carefully draw over it with a brush tool. So to do that, the shortcut is B, and just literally, if you've got the smoothing set quite high, just draw. Even with your mouse, you should be able to kind of follow that roughly, and you get something like that when smoothing is applied. Brush smoothing, which is tucked away if you look at the options under the brush tool. So once you've got that, you're kind of free then to use the width tool. Now I'm going to move this to the side just so we can focus on it for a second. Now with the width tool selected, the shortcut is Shift W, and it lives just there in your toolbar. This won't work at first, and that's because the path we have at the moment, we created it using the brush tool, and our settings kind of prevent the width tool from working. So if you look up in your options, uniform is fine, but we have a brush definition set to one of these presets. We need to change that to basic. Then I'm going to increase the stroke weight just so we can see what we're doing. And you'll now see, if you go back to the width tool, you've got the option to, you can click and drag, and you're creating almost anchor points that will affect the width. So I'd suggest start from the very ends. And as you hover, I'll zoom in a little, as you hover over a kind of endpoint, you can see there's these little anchor points expanding out to the edges here. So this is where you're setting these anchor points for the width. And you could add as many as you like. You don't have to click existing anchor points. You could click anywhere on the path, and it kind of creates a new point for you, and you're then able to adjust the width. So experiment, have a play with this tool. If you've not used it before, it's fantastic. Gives you some real fine control. You can select and kind of drag a point once you've created it to move it further around the path. And using this, you should be able to mirror any kind of effect you have in your original serif font. So in my case here, I could do something like this. If I wanted to match it exactly, we've got a really wide vertical portion to that R, Then it goes super thin, just as it does in the serif font, and then it begins to go wide again as it comes back into the C. So I've not quite fine-tuned that and made it as neat as it could be, but hopefully you get the idea. This is the kind of thing you'd be aiming for. So perhaps you feel, looking at that kind of matches the overall style more closely. If you compare it to the original R that we had there, we've got something kind of similar going on, but we're shaping the direction we want that to flow. Personally though, if I jump back across here, this is the version that I arrived at, and sometimes I find a happy medium works. So in this case, the wide portions aren't nearly as wide as the portions of the original serif font, but it does actually go to about half width as it comes to the horizontal portion here. So for me, this is the perfect balancing point that I've arrived at. But hopefully sharing that technique with you means that whatever the situation, whatever your preference is, you've got the tools to draw a little custom portion with a brush tool if you need, and then start manually adjusting the width and the contrast so you can match the styles. Now we're actually going to revisit that in a bit more detail in a future lesson, and I'll also show you how if you don't want to have to draw out with a brush tool your own ligature, you can kind of adjust and customize from the script font that we've taken this portion from. So all of that's going to come in a future lesson.